So the topic for the live today, and I can't be really long because I'm about to go off to the airport and take a flight, and you don't want to mess around with missing that, right? You know. Okay, so we're talking about celibacy, right? And I want to really put like a new understanding onto this whole topic, because we think of monks and we think of priests and then we think of pedophiles and then we just think celibacy is a really bad idea, and then we think of sexual frustration, and then you have involuntary celibates who's like almost becoming like a whole terrorist organization, just all based on their sexual frustrations, you know. It's kind of crazy, you know, and when I speak to people who are talking about practicing celibacy, very often what they're doing to greater or lesser extent is actually repressing their sexual energy. And what we're talking about is very, very much the opposite. Now, I don't know if anyone here has ever been in the Himalayas. Ken, if you're here, have you been in the Himalayas and visited monasteries, right? Because I visited monasteries up in Ladakh, right? And it's incredible. Okay, why am I talking about monasteries? Obviously, the monks are celibate, and no doubt these guys have all been influenced by Western culture. Now, probably already, yeah, but the fact is these guys were sitting up there, you know, and they were playing these instruments, and at the time I knew there was something really special and I couldn't get it, and later I just came to me, oh my god, these guys are like practicing celibacy, and they're transforming and transmuting their sexual energy, and then they're basically going into these incredibly high states of meditation on their sexual energy. Now, this is more like an Eastern approach to celibacy and so on. And if we look at, for example, Taoism, right? Now, in Taoism, you have celibates, right? Probably the majority, you could say, are practicing as couples. There's another, on the other side, you have some amount that are, you could say, whether you want to call a word like I don't know that polyamorous is the right word, promiscuous, or, you know, they have many, many partners, right? You know, so you got the kind of, I would say the ones with many partners and the celibates are both kind of off on one side. In the center, you have the kind of couple cultivation, so to speak, you know. Point being, though, you know, when you're especially first starting to learn to work with your sexual energy and get into a relationship with your sexual energy, doing that on your own is incredibly powerful. Now, I often speak to people who are like, oh, you know, well, I'm single, I can't really work with my sexual energy. I would really say I disagree with this. I don't agree with this at all, that I think that it's a great, amazing time because, you know, well, when I look back, and I remember years and years ago when I was in this cycle of sexual frustration, having sex just for sexual frustration, you know, I wasn't giving my partner like all I certainly could have been, and more importantly, I wasn't giving myself all I could have been. You know, I didn't have a relationship with my sexual energy. I wasn't actually having orgasms, even though I was having a lot of sexual frustration. And, you know, I was just missing out on a lot because I didn't understand, like most people, what to do with my sexual energy. When I finally got to the point I actually decided to address this, I decided I really was important to me to get into a relationship with my sexual energy. And I started learning the Taoist techniques, right? This is essentially how it works. So imagine the sexual energy is living in your perineum, and in most people, most Western people, it's stuck there. I do believe that if we look at, you know, people, traditional people in tribes, you know, old school people like, you know, the Yaquana in Venezuela, for example, you know, even some people, many people still alive in places like Africa today, this sexual energy just naturally moves up their body because they don't have this whole system that teaches them essentially to repress it. In our culture, we're taught to repress our sexual energy, and in fact, to repress and hide all our emotions and feelings, which basically leaves us just repressing and trying to battle like huge parts of ourselves. Now, we think, okay, either you have to repress or you have to have sex or masturbate or so on and so forth, but there is actually this third way where you can actually start meditating with your sexual energy. And you can start moving and bringing this sexual energy up the body. And this is an incredible thing to do. And it's actually more simple than you might think. And if you want to know a little bit more, I have a free training. I can send you, just type in the chat transmutation, and I'll make sure that that gets sent to you. Okay, so how does it work, right? What do you do? Okay, now essentially, in order to do these practices in the Taoist style, you need to learn to work with energy. So it's like you cultivate and grow energy, you move it and transform it, you refine it, you store it. And then all these things that we think we're kind of powerless about, like things like emotions and feelings and sexual feelings and so on and so forth, suddenly just become energies that are sort of almost malleable, I'd say, in our hands, but it's with our intention that we can move them, we can unblock them, and we can transform them. So all these feelings that before we didn't like, that didn't make us feel good, suddenly we can do whatever we want with them, basically, you know, which is absolutely amazing and incredible. Now, what happens when we start bringing the sexual energy up? Ultimately, it amplifies stuff. If you've ever been to a Tantra workshop or Neo-Tantra or whatever you want to call it, you know, and often they're teaching how to raise the sexual energy. But they don't talk too much about what happens when the sexual energy gets raised and all this stuff starts getting amplified that you've maybe hidden away your entire life. Well, this is why you need to learn how to clear blockages out of your body. It's actually the first step, you know. And it's funny because Taoists are sometimes accused of turning meditation into masturbation, you know, by doing this. What I'm talking about is quite funny, you know. But actually the first exercise, and if you don't know this exercise, or even if you do, come and join me next week after next, on the 10th of October. Join me for my 3-day challenge. I'll be teaching some of these exercises, how you can do them. You can start doing them with me basically on that day and continue doing them and bringing them into your life. The first thing you start doing is you start smiling into your organs and connecting with your organs and actually cultivating the energy there. And in some mad way, it is like full body masturbation, where you're actually starting to masturbate with your internal organs, as in arousing the energy in your internal organs so that you can feel better. But that feeling of feeling better is very different from putting on a porno and jerking out your life force essence. This is awakening and activating the life force essence. So essentially, through various techniques, you start activating and opening your organs and your whole body. And once your body is open, it's then possible to start activating your sexual energy. So this means clearing out blockages in the sexual organs. It's a major one that's really, really important to do. And then to start to move the sexual energy up your body. And as you move it up, of course, more things are going to be getting amplified. But as long as you've done the first part and you actually know how do you smile to your organs, how do you use the sounds, how do you use the other techniques to be able to transform these energies, you then have these energies more or less at your fingertips, and you're able to then start just meditating, moving the sexual energy up and down. And it's yeah, I was just joking earlier that some people accuse Taoists of turning meditation into masturbation, right? You know, but the idea when you're working with this energy is it feels really good, and if you go it with a sense of fun, it's going to work even better, you know. So it's like you can actually begin to start moving the orgasmic energy up your body, bring it into your brain, literally clean your whole brain out with it, and then start bringing it down into your internal organs, where essentially you can actually start to revitalize your internal organs with orgasmic energy and revitalize your glands and your whole body almost, like at a cellular level. So I'm curious who's watching. Do you have any comments, any questions? I've just got 3. Okay, sorry, I was just turning it. For some reason the comments aren't coming up there, but they're coming up here. Okay, so, okay. Yeah. So what I'd like to invite you, if you're watching this or you're watching the replay and you want to know like a little bit more about how can you transmute your sexual energy and how can you spend some time, even if it's 1 hour that you're celibate and you're like, I'm so frustrated, I don't know what to do. Or if it's a day, a week, a month, a year, whether you choose it, whether you don't, This is an amazing time to start self-development practice and start working with your energy. So I've got a really cool training I'd love to send to you. Just type transmutation right into the chat if you want to know, or you can put alchemy if transmutation is too hard to write down, or otherwise make sure that you've signed up to my challenge, which is on the 10th, starting on the 10th of October. So have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.